So there was this one time that I was like walking to Lewisham, and I read that the Krays actually went to prison there, and I was like, this was during lockdown, COVID, and I was locked outside during lockdown. I'd been dropped off at Heathrow Airport and had nowhere to go, so I ended up pushing this shopping trolley out of London with my bags in it, and along that way for like 10 months. At some point, I was heading towards Lewisham, and the road, like I actually managed to get away from the road, and I was like on this beautiful path with cows mixed in with a field. I ended up pushing the trolley through a field. Eventually I bust out onto the road to Lewisham, and I've got like Morrissey playing in my head, like Last of the Famous International Playboys, all about the craze, which he names in the song. And then I was like had that in my head, so it was bizarre. And I'm going down the road on the wrong side. There's no footpath to Lewisham, and like people are coming towards me in the car, and they have to slow down to overtake, and they're like calling the cops like so many times. So this big van shows up with like, no, first of all it's a cop car with like two women. She calls and she's like, you can't go on this road, and she wouldn't allow me to visit Lewisham. So it was crazy. Like I'm going to the place where the crazies were in prison, and I'm being blocked by the cops. And she calls this other van to show up with two guys in it, and they were all like angry that these women had engaged them to show up and have to give me a lift. But so they kind of frustratedly agreed, put my trolley in the back of the van, and I sat in there. And they strapped the trolley, the shopping trolley, into the back of the van, and then they drive me back, and then they drop me off on this road, and it's still like 10 miles to Brighton, but there's this big cycle path at the side of the road. So the cops are like, you have to keep your trolley on the cycle path, and you got to go to Brighton. You're not allowed to go to Lewisham because there's no footpath. So I was blocked from going there. So what I'd love to do is like reenact this with Johnny Depp and try to get to Lewisham, pushing shopping trolleys, and see if we can make it all the way. Listening to Morrissey, famous to the last international Playboys, and possibly do some interviews in Lewisham. And I have no idea what the place is like. I was blocked from going there by the cops, but that was my destination. That's where I was trying to go, but I wasn't allowed. So it's kind of crazy that trolley actually is like safe. It's just slow. It shouldn't be an illegal threat unless the car drivers are screw loose and don't know how to slow down and go around. But that's the way it goes. So anyway, like these days, I figured out cycle touring. So now I'm like biking all over the place, and that's keeping me sane, keeping me in good vibes. And it doesn't matter how slow you go, you can even push the bike. But because you got a bike, no one calls the cops. It's like you're accepted and welcome on the road. But if you're pushing a Marks and Spencers, which have very good bearings, very good wheels, I would admit, a Marks and Spencers Rolls Royce trolley is just like a little far fetched for the other driver's imagination.